Scientific cell. DNA or deoxyribose nucleic acid is the hereditary material in humans and almost all other organisms. Nearly every cell in a person's body has the same DNA. Important property of DNA is that it can replicate or make copies of itself. Each strand of DNA is the double helix sequence of bases. This is critical when cell divides because each new cell needs to have an exact copy of the DNA present in the old one. Genetic arouse out of identification of genes, the fundamental unit responsible for heredity. Genetics may be defined as a study of genes at all levels, including the way in which they act in the cell and the way in which they are transmitted from parents to offsprings. Modern genetics focus on the chemical substance that genes are made of, called deoxyribonucleic acid or DNA, and the way in which it affects the chemical reaction that constitute the living process within the cell. Gene action depends on interaction with the environment. Heredity, also called inheritance or biological inheritance, it is the passing on of traits from parents to their offspring, either through asexual reproduction or sexual reproduction. The offspring cell or organism acquire the genetic information of their parents. Pregnancy occurs when a sperm is fertilized. It released from the ovary during ovulation. The fertilized egg then travels on into the uterus, where implantation occurs. A successful implantation results in pregnancy. On average, a full-term pregnancy lasts 40 weeks. There are many factors that can affect a pregnancy. Women who receive a pregnancy diagnosis and prenatal care are more likely to experience a healthy pregnancy and give birth to a healthy baby. The self is often bow out of psychology on the ground that scientific introspection has failed to discover it. The object of this paper is to examine and to estimate this charge. The self is indefinable. To define is to assign the object defined to a given class and to distinguish it from other members of the class, and the self is generous and therefore incapable of definition. From birth through the end of life, there are many ethical challenges that individuals face. In the new reproduction technologies have increased the need of reason analysis of issues that affect prospective parents and families. As the cost of genome sequencing decreases, researchers are considering whether all newborn could be sequenced at birth, facilitating a lifetime of personalized medical care. Wide sequencing should not be implemented as a universal screening tool in newborn. Sequencing the entire genome may result in the return of genetic data of unknown or uncertain significance and may not yield actionable results. Result can generate unnecessary distress, require health resources for follow-up, monitoring, and care, and the cost of universal genome-wide sequencing would match the operation experience a state-funded newborn screening program, minding the effectiveness of their operation. Integrating targeted genome sequencing into newborn screening program may be appropriate when it is the best way to identify a condition that meets existing screen criteria It affects a newborn's health program are able to fund screening and follow-up care and effective treatment that are available. Targeted genomic sequencing may also be appropriate to confirm a diagnosis and provide additional prognostic information after initial screen result. In genomics, neuroscience, synthetic biology, and nanoscience are merging with advances in computing and artificial intelligence, giving human powers we have never had. In the 20th century, we had to make decisions about the life of a single person. Today, we can make changes to the human genome that are permanently heritable and will reverberate across generation and perpetuity. Subconscious mind never stop processing of information from your surrounding. This affects even your most intentional true practices like self-reflection or mindfulness meditation. A process that is utterly shaped by the conscious process. This is because the brain is always searching for model. It is the algorithm seeking shortcut to the information that you are constantly fed through your perception of the world. Heredity refers to the genetic heritage passed down by our biological parents. It's why we look like them. More specifically, it is the transmission of traits from one generation to the next. Hereditary traits are determined by genes, and a single gene can have several variants called allele. There are two copies of which gene is our cell, with the exception of genes located on sex chromosomes. One of the copies comes from the sperm, the other from the egg. In an individual, these two copies are not necessarily identical. If the two copies of a gene are identical, we say that the individual is homozygous for that gene. The allele of the same gene can have a dominant or recessive relationship with one another. If both alleles are different and at least one of these two alleles is dominant, it is the dominant one that will express as a result. Even if a recessive allele is present in a genotype, genetic constitution of an individual, it will not be observable in the phenotype if the other copy of the gene is a dominant allele. During reproduction, the genes of biological parents combine to form a unique individual. The shuffling of genes is the reason all of us are different. Sexually reproducing organisms include the eukaryotes. Some eukaryotes are capable of reproducing both by sexual and asexual means, whereas others reproduce only sexually. Those capable of reproducing asexually do so through binary fission, fragmentation, budding, or spore production. Asexually reproduction eukaryotes include many species of fungi and other unicellular eukaryotes like protozoans. Since in each case the progeny are derived directly from parental tissue, their genomes are identical. Organism that reproduce sexually. Although the parent passes on its genes to its offspring, the offspring will be genetically distinct. Firstly, it is because only half of the genome will come from each parent.